Five Nights at Freddy's. What does this game mean to you? For some, thinking back on the first installment might remind you of your days back in elementary school, hurrying back home to play FNAF on your iPad. For some, it might remind you of your stressful times in high school. However, no matter what stage of your life you were at, there's just something none of us can deny. FNAF was terrifying, but how? What did this simple indie horror game do differently compared to all the competition? With a $0 budget made all by a single man, how did Scott Cawthon create FNAF's genius horror? Well, that is what I'll discuss in this video. What FNAF nails right off the bat is its audio. No, not that type of audio. No, wrong again. Ah, perfect. Now I know what you're thinking. Shouldn't the jump scare sound be the most important audio? The answer might actually shock you, but no. Let me ask you a question. What good is a jump scare if the build-up isn't there? The build-up in this case being the environment we're placed in. An old-looking office, shadowed with darkness with no prominent audio besides the loud humming of our office fan. The unease Scott creates with just this simple fan in the game is a lot smarter than you'd think. This constant humming noise keeps our ears constantly on edge with an unsettling sound, but a sound that helps further enhance the environment we're in. Imagine if Scott had instead decided to just scrap the whole office ambience and instead just slap on some copyright-free horror music. See? Doesn't really fit with the environment we're in after all, now does it? Alright, besides just the office, let's move on. Now, I'm no mind reader, but I can almost guarantee that everybody's first time seeing the camera we're initially placed on was a moment that sent nothing but pure chills down your spine. However, nowadays looking at this single image probably won't really put much fear into you, but rather fill you with nostalgia. So why is it that this single camera sent so much fear into you when you first played this game? Well, it's actually really simple. The unknown. More specifically, the fear of the unknown. Picture it like this. Imagine if instead of seeing this camera pop up as soon as you hit that camera button, instead you get a massive pop-up telling you the names of each animatronic along with their friendly-looking faces. Then once you've had enough time to read all of that, you can continue playing the actual game. Suddenly you'd notice that these animatronics you're seeing aren't so scary after all, which is exactly what Scott wanted to avoid. Even from the moment you click on that Five Nights at Freddy's file and are loaded into the main title screen, Freddy is almost completely shrouded in darkness to further emphasize the fact that we really don't know who or what we're going up against. As your fear starts to ease you, decide to look around at these cameras a bit more. You see what's really going on. While you're slowly trying to learn the layout of this map, you also start to realize how big this location actually is, and the fact that you are nothing more than a static object waiting for something to happen. You realize that your only lines of defense are actively looking at the cameras to see how close your inevitable fate is from you, or you can actively try and block off the animatronics from getting in by closing the doors. That is, if you spot them in time. Alright. I've dissected the game with its key audio choices and dark lighting and whatnot. However, it'd be disrespectful to leave out the main stars of the show, the animatronics themselves. More specifically, the fact that they are animatronics in the first place is already enough to deliver in the aspect of horror, as animatronics are already parts of our world. They do already exist, and the main cast of FNAF are no exceptions. During the day, the animatronics put on shows for people to watch and enjoy their pizza, while during the night, they are nothing but lifeless. During the day, they are all lit up by bright stage lights to emphasize how friendly they are, but during the night, they are covered in darkness. This contrast between how they are in the day and how they act at night lets our imagination also run wild with this concept. Like, if the FNAF animatronics are like this, who's to say the animatronics existing in our world aren't any different? While being an unreasonable and unrealistic thought, it's one that helps give this game more life, as if it were real. The animatronic suits themselves also don't do them any favors for looking friendly, since whenever you view the main cast on the cameras, you normally notice the large shadows that loom over their eyes normally. This is because, since the suits are just so big, the shadows created from the ceiling lights cast directly down onto their face, making them look even more lifeless and possessed. Another major contribution to the horror of these animatronics is their limited movement, almost like it's a game of red light, green light. Whenever you're looking at the animatronics directly, they will always just stare you down. However, take your eyes off of them for 1 second, and before you know it, they've already begun taking gradual steps closer and closer to your very location. This simple mechanic, while extremely effective, isn't actually all to Scott's credit, but rather to the software he used to create the mainline's ClickTeam Fusion. ClickTeam, to put it simply, is a very easy to learn game engine and is one that I've actually learnt throughout the years purely for my love of FNAF. And while it can definitely achieve some fantastic results in game development, its limiting factors are no pretty sight either, since ClickTeam itself is actually a 2D game engine and is simply made up of a bunch of flat images. While yes, the animatronics and environments were all created from 3D models, they were actually exported into the engine simply as just static images, with lines of code fueling their movements, which is exactly the reason why Scott would have definitely struggled if he had tried to implement full animatronic movement in the cameras. So instead of seeing this limitation as a loss in quality, Scott saw the potential this had and used this as one of the many tools in his arsenal. He knew that simply having the animatronics teleport from camera to camera would just feed into the player's mind more as we try to question with ourselves. How were these animatronics even moving if we never actually saw them move? That being said, the game's horror goes much deeper than any of those simple factors. For the players who are simply content on playing the games and enjoying them, then good on them, of course. The game is still filled with thrills from start to finish. However, where FNAF's horror really shines is with its dark and twisted lore. Now, no, I'm not going to go into every single detail on the lore in this video. We'll save that for another time. However, I do still want to touch up on it, since whether you are a fan of a franchise at all, it's without a doubt you've heard talk about FNAF's lore to some extent, whether it's with mentions of the purple guy, kids going missing, and so on and so forth. However, even for a first installment, the game itself packs a lot of lore, but in very clever ways. For those people who are simply playing the game for the enjoyment factor, then by all means, those people don't need to concern themselves with all of that. However, for the people who look closer, you start to notice specific details suddenly change throughout the cameras. Posters glitching out showing animatronics trying to break free from their eternal prison. Police reports of missing kids involving potential murders and so much more. These clues we as the player are given further feed into how real this world is from a story standpoint and helps enhance the horror even more. It makes this world, which seemed so fictional to us, seem so much more like it had its own story, like all these animatronics had lives of their own. And now, we are simply just witnessing all these events take place as nothing more than bystanders. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, then I'd encourage you to hit that like button or even subscribe while you're at it. That being said, I've been Sir Freddy. Have a wonderful day.